Back in November, I was doing my GCSE mocks. One evening, I called my dad, and his first concerns, of course, were how my exams were going. I remember telling him, they're not too bad, but they're not important. They don't matter, so you shouldn't worry at all. And he said, yes, when the world ends, your exam results won't matter. But I was referring to the fact that the marks I get in my mocks don't have impact on my future like the results I get in my real GCSEs do. But he didn't get the point, so we started talking about something else. But I think it must have affected me more than I initially thought, because my thoughts kept coming back to that. Are mocks important? Are GCSEs important? And as per, one thought leads to another. And I was thinking, are we important? And clearly that is a very different question to, are mocks important? But it is a question that I'm sure we've all thought. And it's a very open-ended question, but it can be divided into two clearer questions, which is, are humans important? And are we as individuals important? Thousands of attempts have been made to answer these two seemingly basic questions in physics, chemistry, biology, psychology, philosophy, and even in the arts. This just goes to show how many ways there are of approaching these questions. And there are a lot of emotions that come with these questions. The answers to them will tell us a bit about who we are, what we are, and why we're here, which are all very fundamental things we feel like we should know, but don't. Today, I'm going to attempt to answer these two questions. I'm not a physicist, a psychologist, or any ISK, evidently, but I am very interested in the answers, and I'm going to be bringing together bits of information and ideas from several spheres of knowledge together in this attempt. So, the first question is, are humans important? The first way of looking at this question is through the lens of physics. Physics is a study of space, matter, energy, and time, and the way these things interact. Essentially looking at our smallness. So much space and time stretch out around us that we are the tiniest of specks. As far as we know, the universe came into existence 13.8 billion years ago. Earth was created 4.5 billion years ago. The first distinguishable human came into existence only 2.5 million years ago. And then we only started farming 12,000 years ago. Humans have been here for the tiniest fraction of time, and for most of it, we have been practically the same as the animals we've completely alienated ourselves from in the last few thousand years. And then there's an infinity of time after us. One day, the sun will consume Earth, probably long after we're all gone, and the universe won't even notice or remember. And what about in terms of space and matter? So I'd say that this school is pretty big, but Kent is even bigger. It's 3,736 square kilometers, but it only takes up 1.5% of the UK's land area. And the UK only takes up 0.048% of the Earth's surface area. I don't think that comes as a huge surprise when you consider the size of the Atlantic and Asia and other huge places we have on Earth. And planet Earth is very big. But the crazy, mind-blowing, insane statistic is that planet Earth only takes up this much of the universe. That's 58 zeros, if you're still counting. And this smallness, this unimaginable smallness, has an effect on us. For thousands of years, people thought that Earth was the center of the universe, that we were the rulers of it, that the sun, all the planets closest to us, like Mercury and Mars, and all the other stars orbited around us. But there was a problem with this. Sometimes we'd see the planets closest to us moving backwards. We just called this retrograde motion and left it for a few years, even though the maths didn't add up. Until 1532, when Nicholas Copernicus published a book stating that, in fact, we, Earth, and all our closest planets orbited around the sun, and the sun was only one of thousands of other stellar systems. This made people really upset. They were angry that we were no longer the center of the universe, that everything didn't revolve around us. One of these people was the French philosopher Blaise Pascal. In one of his essays he wrote, "When I consider the short duration of my life, swallowed up in an eternity before and after, the little space I feel engulfed in the infinite immensity of spaces whereof I know nothing and know nothing of me, I am terrified." Yeah, sounds like a really fun guy. But Drama aside, I think that a lot of people still feel this way. There is so much emptiness, so much nothing out there, and it does initially seem really frightening. But how lucky does that make us? Out of all the thousands of planets we've encountered, we're the only one that hosts life. Yes, there is a distinct possibility that we might one day find a planet that's inhabited, but so far, we essentially, with the data available, we cannot say that we're the only planet that hosts life, but we can definitely say that we are exceptional and special. So I mentioned before that physics is essentially the study of how small we are. And yes, smallness can make something unimportant, but I think that uniqueness definitely makes something important. So onto biology. Biology is the study of organisms and living things, which is what we are. And in the last 2.5 million years, we've become so disconnected from all other organisms. In a few thousand years, we occupied every continent. We caused mass extinctions of millions of species. We built empires, we developed technology, we wrote symphonies and novels, we split the atom, and we even left Earth. Our unprecedented ability to create, to discover, and to learn has inarguably made us one of the most significant species on Earth. However, I think we take a really dangerous position when we push ourselves so far away from other creatures. Yes, we are the apex predators, the only creatures to have done the countless things I mentioned, but it's important to remain aware of the line that we have drawn between us and them is blurred. One of these places was outlined by the Dutch primatologist Frans de Waal. In the 70s, he conducted one of the most famous animal behavior experiments of all time. He organized a room full of children and gave them a marshmallow each, and he taught them that the longer they waited, the more marshmallows they would get later. He did the same with a room full of young chimpanzees and a room full of young African grey parrots. And after the same amount and intensity of training, the final results were this. The human children, on average, waited about 10 minutes until they succumbed to the temptation and ate their marshmallow. The chimpanzees waited also on average 10 minutes, but the most strong-willed chimpanzee waited 18 minutes, which was much longer than the most strong-willed child. And the African grey parrots approximately waited 15 minutes until they ate the marshmallow. And this just goes to show that animals have free will. They're not slaves to their desires like we portray them to be. That moral behavior predates humans. So why is this important? Because animals have cognition. We see this in whales and dolphins. Animals have intelligence. We see this in crows and elephants. And animals have emotions. Ask anyone with a pet and they'll tell you their pet has feelings. We use moral behavior in the form of clothes, of laws, of social manners to create that divide between us and animals. So, yes, we are important, but in many fundamental ways, we aren't so different from other animals, and we didn't start out so smart and special. There was a point in which there was one animal that was the ancestor of all chimpanzees and humans. I truly think it was one little change in our genetics, complex brain or better cognitive abilities, that diverged the path we used to share with them and set us on the new one that resulted in the modern world we live in now. Yeah, we're important, but I think it does good to dim the arrogance that we definitely possess as a species, and to remember that in many ways, the core of who we are is the same as the core of who animals are. So, scientifically, humans are important. But then there's the second question, are we as individuals important? But that is a more tricky one to answer. The answer lies out of the realm of natural sciences. So, the Oxford Dictionary definition of important is of great significance and value. I've been talking about importance in the sense of significance, because significance is something very easy to see and to measure. It is uniqueness and impactfulness, things we cannot really disagree upon. It is completely objective. What is subjective, on the other hand, and we cannot see or measure, is value. Value differs from person to person. For me, my dog, impressionist paintings, and lemon sherbets have a lot of value. But to most people, some of the people in the audience won't know I have a dog, or a lot of people don't care about French art in the slightest, and there are even people out there that dislike lemon sherbets. So the Cambridge professor of philosophy, Simon Blackburn, was once asked if human life had any importance, and he answered with, "To whom?" And I think this is a really good answer because it just shows that what you find valuable is not affected by what others find valuable. It is your very own thing. Value is not affected by external things the way significance is. The value of gold is not affected by the value of steel. They have varying degrees of value in different situations and varying degrees of value to different people. Maybe we cannot control what has significance, but we can control a lot of what has value. Like, do you think ants look up to human beings and think, wow, humans are so big and amazing and important and great? I really doubt that. Like, even if they are capable of thinking, I think that they will think that humans are significant because we have impacted their lives with the development of roads, of cities, of sugary sweets, and of various insect repellents. But I highly doubt that they think we're important in the sense of value. We know that ants understand hierarchy and importance. They structure their lives around a colony with the queen ant at the top and worker ants at the bottom. But I don't think they think humans are the queen ants of the world. They don't want to be humans. They're too preoccupied with their own lives, their own needs, and their own problems to be thinking about humans. To them, their colony is the universe. And everything that has value to them is within their colony or what their colony uses to sustain themselves, like sweets. And this is the same for humans. Everything within your own life is for what has value to you. And this can also be applied to the space around us. So this is a photo taken from Saturn of Earth. Cool. But it can be applied to the space around us. So yes, one day Earth will be consumed by the sun and the universe won't even remember. But when did you ever stop and think about planets billions of light years away being consumed by stars? You're too busy thinking about your own lives. Because to us, it's not those planets that have value. It's what is within our lives that have value. So I guess that means I've come to what my answer to the questions would be. Humans are important. Maybe we're small, but most of the big things out there are very simple and empty and dead, making us significant. And our importance on Earth is often mischaracterized. We may be very important now, but our beginnings and the core of who we are shared with other animals. Yet we cannot deny that we've come to a point in which we are very important. I like to think that with that importance has come a lot of responsibility. We've gone from being the children of planet Earth to the people that have to look after it. And finally, to a great extent, each individual is important because it is in your hands to decide what has value. And the things that will have value to you most are yourself and the things within your life. All the things that have value for you, that matter to you, your experiences, your relationships, your goals, the things you appreciate and enjoy are important. They are largely unaffected by the things outside of the world you live in and outside your life, and largely affected by what goes on within ant colonies and the vast emptiness of space. So, are we important? I think I'd say yes, we are.